Hey everyone, welcome back if you're returning, or welcome if you're new. If you've seen a few of my videos before, you know that this is my 2006 Honda Accord EXL V6. It's powered by the J30. The unique thing about this one is that it's paired to the 6-speed manual, so somewhat of a unicorn among the Honda world. For the most part, it is completely stock. Anything that is different on it has been solely aesthetic, and as you walk around the car, you can kind of take a look at those things yourself. Nonetheless, the purpose of this video was actually to talk about something that's a little bit more negative than I typically focus on. Another unique thing about this car is the fact that it is a really low mileage example. Of course, a 2006 Honda Accord at this point is likely to have at or above 200,000 miles, whereas this one has just rolled over 80,000 not too long ago. And yeah, it's a great thing because I can kind of brag about having a low mileage example, but it does come with a certain set of nuances that I've honestly never experienced before. I have owned a car with lower mileage than this. I had a 2014 Civic Si for about a month. That one had 38,000 miles when I bought it, and it was a great car, but it also spent all of its life in South Carolina, whereas this car spent most of its life in Ohio and did a short stint in Virginia before I bought it. And with that, it means it was exposed to conditions that are a whole lot more severe than what we're used to in South Carolina. So cold weather, snow, and I guess what I'm hinting at is the fact that it has been exposed to salt, which means it does have some rust in a few areas that I unfortunately have uncovered in my year or so of owning the car. So that being said, I guess today's video is going to focus on the rust as well as just other issues that I've unfortunately discovered since buying this car, as well as it presents on camera and even in person. If you start to dig a little bit deeper, there are some things that I truly could not have noticed before I bought the car, and it's worth mentioning that I did buy it sight unseen. I saw it on Auto Trader one day, I guess at this point about a year ago, and reached out to the dealer simply to see if, in the case that I did decide to buy it, if it could be transported. Well, clearly it's here, so I did. But with that, you know, there were some things that I simply would not have known, and as a dealership, being a dealership and doing their job, they would not have disclosed. So we'll start off with the rust since I mentioned that. Of course, it's a Honda, so anytime rust is a topic or a concern, these quarter panels are going to be one of those areas of concern. So you can see where it's kind of started to bubble up at right there. It is minor right now, but of course, anytime we're dealing with rust, it starts out minor and then over time turns out to be more. So there's that spot right there. And then again, quarter panels are always going to be the biggest concern with rust on a Honda. So over here, it's the exact same, pretty similar size or pretty similar area of rust bubbles right there. Now, as far as on the body itself, aside from very small little nicks, that's about all I've noticed at this point. But again, any rust is not going to be a good sign. And as someone who's only owned cars from either Georgia or South Carolina, rust really is, you know, it's new to me, if you will. Next focus is going to be tires. In short, the tires are trash, particularly on the front. The ones in the back are as well, but they're a bit newer. The ones in the front are actually from the year 2011. To put that into perspective, I would have been in 6th grade in 2011, whereas now I literally teach 6th grade. So a whole, you know, a whole circle of events, if you will, has taken place in between these tires being put on and present day. As a dealer, I think it's very sketchy to sell someone a car that has tires that are that old. Nonetheless, I did buy the car sight unseen, so I can't put all of the fault on the dealer. I do take my accountability and my part in that as well. Nonetheless, tires are really old. Of course, that makes the ride less than ideal. In a perfect world, I would have been able to get them replaced far sooner than I have. Fortunately, I have been able to set aside some money to do that. So this week, all 4 tires will actually be getting replaced, which is great. In the area of tires, I can also focus very quickly on the brakes. So the performance of the brakes isn't terrible because the pads are relatively new. However, the other componentry is starting to suffer, or at this point is already suffering from rust as well. So if you take a look at the calipers, for example, those are pretty much completely rusted out. The rotors have started to kind of suffer from the same thing. I have seen rust on rotors before, so that's not as much of a surprise to me, but the fact that the calipers look like that is really concerning. And of course, from a distance, that's pretty difficult to tell. So for example, in videos that I've recorded of this car in the past, maybe you couldn't see that, but looking up close and really in person, it's actually immediately noticeable. See that the front one really is no different. Now, like I mentioned, from a distance or even at first glance, many of the things that I'm mentioning aren't really that noticeable, but considering the fact that I drive the car often, I look at it often, I wash it often, so on and so forth, these things are going to stick out like a sore thumb to me. I am a perfectionist, especially when it comes to my cars. Any car that I've owned, whether it's been as old as my 1998 or as new as my 2014, I've always taken care of as if it was, fresh out of the showroom floor. So to have a car like this that looks great, but under the surface has a few issues, kind of does bother me. And I think the fact that I haven't been in the financial place to address things as immediately as I want to, that has bothered me as well. Nonetheless, I think I am in a place right now where I can kind of start to sort out some of these things, and that's actually more so the purpose of this video, kind of getting some insight on where I should start. If you have any experience with these cars in particular, or just cars in general, as far as it relates to the issues that I pointed out, any insight, any feedback, definitely would be appreciated. Now, the next area of focus actually requires us to go under the hood. And I will say, in doing that, the car does run and drive excellently. It drives like a dream, just like a dream, but there is an issue under the hood as well. And that issue runs us back to the rust. So here's Honda's J30 in all its glory. At this point, I've owned 3 cars with some variants of this engine. Really love it. This one in particular, though, you can see under the hood does not look so great either. So the pictures on the website when I bought the car, of course, showed this part. So did it look brand new? Not necessarily, but this in context looks a whole lot worse. I guess the reason that I'm concerned about the rust under here, beyond it being surface rust, there is going to come a point where this car has to get the timing belt replaced, water pump replaced, so on and so forth. And I would hate to run into an issue where whoever's performing that service can't access or can't untorque any of these bolts because they're rusted in place. Have I tried to do it myself? No. In taking the car to get oil changes and stuff, it hasn't been an issue. But again, there's going to come a certain point where there is more in-depth or more in-detail service that needs to be done. And I don't want that to be an issue. So again, I guess the purpose of this video is, one, to kind of reveal some of these issues that I haven't necessarily talked about and going over the car in the past, but also get some insight or feedback on the best approach when it comes to some of these issues that are not immediately solvable, if you will. When it comes to tires, yeah, I can take care of that myself. When it comes to the components that have started to rust away, I've never dealt with that before. So getting some insight on either people who have the expertise or have simply experienced similar issues definitely would be nice. So if you have any feedback that you think can be relevant and I guess productive and helpful, I'd really appreciate it. Again, I take full fault in the fact that I bought the car sight unseen. As a dealer, their goal is going to be to make money, and if the goal is to make money, some of the issues that I now notice in person are not going to be disclosed in the process of buying the car. Nonetheless, I appreciate you for watching, and I appreciate you even more if you are able to leave some feedback that can kind of help me sort out the issues, if you will, with my 6.6. Of course, I still love this car. There's literally no part of me that has any intention on getting rid of it right now or even in the future, because again, it is somewhat of a unicorn. To most people, it's just going to look like a standard 7th generation Honda Accord. Is that what it is? I mean, at the end of the day, sure, but I guess those of us that know why this one is important or special simply know. So it's not going to go anywhere, but I also don't want it to turn into a project car, if you will. I want to make sure that I get it sorted out as possible, starting with the things that are going to be easy, like the tires, so on and so forth, but definitely getting into some of that rust as well. I appreciate you for watching. Have a good one.